Hello and welcome to this how-to video covering deck building within the Ashes module for VASSAL. If you just bear with me while I set up a screen share and then switch to the VASSAL module, I will be able to talk you through launching the module for the first time. So once you've got VASSAL installed and the module added, the module will appear in the module library list. At the moment, it's the only one I've got installed, so that's all you can see. So simply double click on the Ashes module and it will load. This can take a little while. The first time you do this, it will spend some time tiling the graphics within the module, and you'll also be asked to enter a username and password. It doesn't matter what username and password you put in, you won't ever be asked them again. So just put whatever you want in there. But once all that's done and subsequent times, you'll be presented with this welcome screen. There are three options, as you can see: start a new offline game, start a new online game, and load saved game. I will not be covering the load saved game. Generally, it's not used very much, so I won't bother covering that. The online look for a game online option I will cover in another video at some point. But for now, I will just be talking about I will be using rather the start new game offline, and this is generally what you're going to want to do if you're just building decks within the module for later play. So ensure that is selected and click next. You'll then be asked which side you want to join. At this point, it doesn't matter. There are 4 player options and an observer. You can pick player 1 or observer or any of the other players. If you wish, I will pick player 1 for the moment and then click finish. Now, then you'll see the main window for the module itself appear, and this is divided up into a number of areas. At the top here we have a message window. This will display various status information from the module itself, and also allows you to chat to other players, typing in your message in the little text edit box and hit enter, and it'll appear on that, and all the players will be able to see that. And so if you don't have voice chat, then you can use that to communicate. At the bottom we have a solo play mat, so once you actually got a deck built, if you want to do some goldfish testing of your deck, you can use that. But again, I'm not going to cover this in detail in this video. It will be covered in a future video. And then going back to the top of the window, we have a menu bar, which you can ignore for the moment, and a toolbar. The first few buttons you generally aren't going to use very often. One of them we will talk about later in the video, but I'll describe that when I come to it. But the main buttons you're going to be interested in are all of these larger graphical buttons, and these will be used whilst you're building your deck and playing the game. The first one toggles a display showing all of the cards that are included within the module. It's divided up into 4 main sections: main set, promos, Children of Black Cloud and the Frostdale Giants. As more cards and sets are added to the module, this will expand to include those. And then within each section, it is further divided up into card types, and in the main set you also have an entry for the dice reference cards and the dice themselves, which I will talk about later, and all of the various tokens that are used, and the main phases of play reference card. So one of the things you will probably find you need to do is resize these to make them readable. There are nice little columns you can drag. Similarly, the division between the top half of the main window and the bottom half, that can be resized by dragging that bar up and down. So for the moment, I will just leave this open, and let's switch it to there. The next window, and the main one I will be talking about, is the deck building window. I will come back to this in just a moment, but you can see this has a nice layout for arranging your cards whilst you're building your deck. But for the moment, I'll just close that and I'll quickly run through the other buttons on the toolbar. We have a D20, just in case you need a random result at any point. You can click that, and in the message area it shows the result for your roll, and if multiple players click the thing, it'll indicate who clicked it. The next button along brings up a phase indicator. So if you wish, whilst playing the game, you can use this to indicate which of the three phases of the game you're in. And again, this also comes up within the message window that you're moving from phase 1 to phase 2, or phase 2 to phase 3, and then again phase 3 to phase 1. So that could be useful whilst playing the game. The next brings up the standard 2-player mat. So this is what you're going to use most of the time whilst playing. Again, I'm not going to cover this in any detail in this video. There will be a future video covering how to actually play the game and use this mat. And then there are 4 buttons for the player hands. As I picked player 1, only mine is actually clickable and the other 3 are grayed out. And again, I'm not going to discuss this in any great detail, but as you can see, there's a window with spaces to put your cards that are in your hand. And then lastly but not leastly, we have a quick way to access the main game reference card if you need it now. So let's go back to the deck builder window, and one thing you may have noticed on the toolbar, there are these plus and minus zoom buttons, and the deck builder also has these on. Most of the pop-up windows have these, and they're very useful for getting windows to fit. One of the things you'll find and you'll need to get used to with VASSAL is making everything fit on the screen in a way that you find useful, and these zoom buttons are very useful for that. So you've got your plus and minus zoom, which work as you might expect, and then this middle one gives you some predefined zoom levels, and then you can set up more finely defined or custom zoom levels, and then you have fit width, fit height, and fit visible. I'm not actually sure what that last one does, but I use fit height quite often. So let's get on to the main topic in this video, which is how to build a deck and save it and reload it within this VASSAL module. Okay, so as I said, we have this deck building mat that has a number of areas laid out, as you can see. These are intended for specific things. So the top left, we have a space for the Phoenix Born, and what I think I'll do is I'll put together Brennan Black Cloud's deck to illustrate. And one of the things to be aware of, and something that a lot of people stumble on when they're first using VASSAL, is you can't drag the names, you have to actually drag the picture. So if we go back to Brennan, I can't select him there and drag him across, I have to drag the picture across. So let's drop Brennan in, and as you see, it as soon as you drop it in, it shrinks down to the size and it snaps into place. We then have a space for his dice, and I will just remember where those are. Oh yes, they're in there. Dice, and I need to remember what dice type he uses. Oh yes, of course, ceremonial. So go back to here, pick ceremonial, and as I said, you've got the reference card. So if you want, you can drag the reference card. The three layered zones. This may well change in a future version of the module, because it can be a bit tricky to get things to place in the right place, but we'll add that to our deck building window, and we will drag across a die, and then the quickest way to get more than one of them is to use the clone facility. You can either do this with the right-click menu, and that produces a second one. And another thing to be aware of in VASSAL is if you hover over an item that is more than one thing, then it'll pop up a little window showing you all of the items that are there. You can also use Control-C to make more of them. So let's just quickly spread these out, make a few more. And we should now have, see, that's what, 7, 8, 9, 10. Spread these out. So, oops, there we go, 10. So yeah, now we have 10 individual dice and the reference card at the back. Now on the right hand side at the top here, we also have two spaces for the conjuration and draw decks. So let's start with his conjurations. Let's go back to here, and we'll grab a couple of dread wraiths and then drop them onto the deck stack. And as you see, the back appears, and when you hover over it, it just shows the back. This is so that the opponent can't easily see what you have in your deck. Now, once you've got a deck, there are a couple of things you can do with it. You can save it. So let's say we want to save this, and we'll put it on the desktop, and we'll call it Brennan Conjurations. Now these files don't have a file type associated with them. You could put one in. For example, I might call it VDeck. Somebody click save, and that will get saved. What you can then do is, if I select that deck again, actually let's drag the file, the cards off and select them. I can then delete them, and we can load that file in again. So call it congratulations.feeddeck and open that up, and it has again opened those as a loaded those in as a deck. So now let's go through, and let's say we're building a deck, and now obviously with this deck we know exactly what's going to go into it. We'll have 3 of these, and so let's clone that and put another one there. No, not there, there, and then another one here. If I can get it to go there. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, we can lay out cards 3 at a time. This is useful if you're trying to, if you're building a custom deck. You're not really sure exactly what you want in there. You can lay them out and then add and delete things and swap them around, and there are exactly 30 slots. So 5 in each row, 2 rows, 3 layers, if you like. This will probably change because, as you've seen, getting the cards to snap into the right place can be a little bit tricky. So yeah, as I was saying, this will probably change at some point, but this is how it's set up at the moment. Oops, that's not. That's not. Yeah, and I am ably demonstrating just how tricky it is to get them to snap into place. Anyway, I'll not go through and do all of the cards, but once you have your cards in here, you can then drag them over to this pile, either one at a time, or you can drag them as a group, and they will all add themselves to this deck. So again, we can save that as draw deck B deck, save, and again I will just drag all of them off. In fact, I might as well show you this now. If you do draw multiple cards, you can put in a number. So let's say let's put in 30, because I know there's definitely less than 30 in there. And then you click and drag, it picks up that number of cards. And this is the easiest way to drag an entire deck of cards. So let's, and again, as you see, I hover over that and it displays a big image showing all of the, or well, the first 3.5 cards in the deck. But let's delete that and then show that we can reload that deck, open, and that's loaded in. And then another thing that is very useful is this draw specific cards. So if we click on that, it brings up this list of cards, and you can select and then control and select the cards you want to draw. Click OK, and then when you click and drag, it selects just those cards. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that the cards are all face down. Once they're in the deck, they automatically become what's termed masked, and when you draw them off, they start off face down or masked. If you select them, it'll show what they are. But you can also use Control M to toggle the mask status. So I just made all of those face up, and I can make this one. I can also use Control M to flip it over. As you can now see, the draw specific cards, I selected one of each, and when I then dragged the cards off, it dragged off the cards that I was wishing to draw from the deck. So I'll just put those back. So let's say we've gone through and we've built our deck using this, laying out the cards down here and then building the deck, and what was I saying? Yeah, one of the things that we haven't showed how to save yet is the Phoenix Ball and the dice and reference cards and everything. And we can't save these individually, but what you may wish to do is save the whole setup. So your Phoenix Ball, the number of dice of each dice type you want, any reference cards, your conjurations, and your draw pile. You may want to save this all as one file. This is a little less straightforward than saving individual decks, but it's not too complicated once you know how to do it. So the first thing you need to do is when you've got everything how you want it, you go to File and you go Begin Log File. You then put in a file name, and these will generally be called vlog files. You can change it to something else if you want, it really doesn't matter. Then click Save. It will then ask you for a description. Doesn't matter whether you put this in or not, but I usually put something in. Click OK, and then the key bit for getting everything to save is to highlight everything you want saved. Make sure it is all highlighted. Right click on one of the items, select Clone, and then go back to File and End Log File. Now what this did was Clone made a second copy of everything, and that cloning process is what is written into the log file. So if I select everything here and delete it, and let me just check whether these are, yeah, that's empty and that's empty. So everything's been deleted. What we can now do is go File, Load Continuation, and find our log file again, open it, and then initially it looks like nothing has happened, but that is because you need to step forward through the log file to replay the actions that are recorded in it. And that is what this second button on the toolbar does. So after you've done load continuation and selected your file, simply click that once, and all the cards and dice and items that you saved via that method will appear within the deck builder window. It will then ask you whether you want to start a new log file. Simply click no, and you'll find that everything that you put in there is now still in there, and so that is how you save and then load complete setups of decks and dice and Phoenix Born. Once you start playing, you can then drag the files out. Let me just zoom that out a bit. Not the files, the cards and dice and so on out onto the playmat. And we'll just drop those down here for the moment. Select that, move that somewhere else. No. I think those all become stacked up. So I have to spread those out again. That's all 10 of those, and you've got a reference card down there. And then again, now for dragging these again, what you will need to do is draw multiple cards, put in a number that you know is bigger than the size of the deck, click OK, and then it will drag the whole lot down for you. And again on that, we'll put in 100 because we know it's less than 100 cards. Drag it down, and then you're ready to start playing, and you can close the deck window. And that is where I will end this video. In a future video, I will talk about the playing mats and the solo and two-player playing mats and how to use those, and your hand window. So thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please just ask them in the comments, and I will try to address them as soon as I can. Okay, thanks again.